UFC Fight Night Magny versus Prates, Vegas 100, full recap, reaction results, all of that. This is Masked MMA, and my typology is Mask of MMA, in case you want to follow that and see my picks. And make sure to like, comment, subscribe. Let's get into it. Now, Melissa Mullins just completely controlled the entire fight pretty much against Claudia Segula. Um, Quite unfortunate considering that I picked Mullins to lose, but I simply didn't expect the grappling advantage to be so severe. I understand that maybe that's what the betting markets were looking at, and most of the typology fans, maybe they looked back and saw that Claudia didn't really have grappling, or that Melissa Mullins did. Either way, she eventually got the ground and pound TKO. She just couldn't improve her position. I'm of course referring to Claudia. So yeah, she needs to work on her takedown defense. I wonder if they'll keep her in the UFC. But lots of fighters that might need to consider canceling their contracts with the UFC because lots of loss streaks here, lots of bad losses. Moving on, we have Tresean Gore versus Antonio Tricoli. Now, with this one, I expected Antonio Tricoli to be able to judge the distance a little better with his reach and his kicks and all that. And I knew that it was a little bit of a risky one because, as we know, especially as we know now, Tresean Gore has great guillotines. Now, of course, we already knew this, but it's especially proven now with how many he has. That's like his technique. And yeah, I mean, he actually looked decent in the boxing as well, even. He closed the distance good enough, I would say. And yeah, Antonio Tricoli, he's not great. I overestimated him and his skills. So, yeah, I thought it was a decent underdog, just judging off of the athletic capabilities and the fact that he lasted to round 3 against Share a Bullet. But, oh well. Moving on, we have Damon Blackshear versus Cody Stamann. Now, I kind of expected a clear win from Damon Blackshear, but I was expecting Cody Stamann to maybe put up a little bit more of a fight and have a stronger chin to um, to withstand the kind of knees or punches that Damon was throwing. But I did pick Damon Blackshear. However, I didn't expect him to get the sub so quick. I didn't pick a sub or a knockout because I was thinking maybe he could get a knockout, but I wasn't thinking that he would try and go aggressive after his quick knockout to Montel Jackson in his last fight. So I was thinking that he would try to play it more of a long and rangy fight style. And he kind of did, but when he saw the opening, he then unleashed his ground strikes to a submission, to another submission. It was a guillotine, I believe, and into a rear naked choke. So, yeah, I mean, I think the odds were justified, and um, only reason I didn't expect him to get the sub or a knockout was because I thought he would fight on the feet more passively, and I thought that he would um, not be able to or not bother going to the ground with a pretty good wrestler in Cody Stamann. But these are quite a few losses adding up in Cody Stamann's career now. This is like 4 losses in a row, maybe three losses in a row, 7-7 in the UFC. I think we can all agree that he should be cut from the UFC. Now, granted, he's lost against some good competition, but he's only made the rankings about one time, and even that was arguable, right? Yeah, I mean, I would say cut him. I don't think there's any value in keeping him in the UFC any further. Moving on, Charles Radke versus Matthew Semelsberger. Another fighter that I think should be cut from the UFC at this point, and I think more so because Matthew is 5-6 in the UFC. I remember checking this, and Matthew Semelsberger is, I mean, let's just be honest, he is a shell of his former self. He used to be able to go to war with some fighters who were actually quite decent, and Charles Radke is decent, but he couldn't go to war with him. Now, I was surprised at how many people still expected Semelsberger to win. I did see some of the more high-profile analysts and YouTubers picking Semelsberger, and I didn't quite see it. I understand that his opposition was pretty good, but those are wars we're talking about. Now, these people were probably saying that because he went to war with these people, that he could go to war with Radke. But they didn't think about the fact that that is damage, and that is worse damage than simply getting knocked out one time or two times, as opposed to all the wars that he has put himself through. So, yes, he might have had a competitive fight and then eventually losing, but it would have been better if it was simply a quick knockout, a flash knockout. We know this. It's better to get knocked out than to take too much severe damage. Unless it is a injury or something of that nature. But, yeah, good, decent prospect to look out for in Charles Radke, I think. Shows how good Carlos Prates is. I was saying going into this one, he has good boxing. I was saying that. Only issue is the reason why I picked him by decision as well is because I thought that Semelsberger would have the chin to withhold the strikes enough, but I did think that his reaction to the punches would be worse. I did think that the wars would catch up to him, but not this badly. So, yeah, I think he needs to be cut from the UFC. I don't think there's any way up in this organization anymore for him. I feel bad for him, but it is what it is at this point. And Zleski versus Zach Scrogginen. Now, I didn't make a prediction for this fight within my prediction video, and the reason for that is because this fight got made after that video. And that's because his original opponent, Elizeu Zaleski, was Nicholas Dalby. And yeah, I mean, I did pick Elizeu Zaleski, and I was surprised at how all three of these fights that I picked by decision over here, Zaleski, Radke, and Blackshaw, all by first round KO when I picked decision. I found that to be quite hilarious. And yeah, I picked Zaleski. I picked Zaleski because I did expect the veteran scale from the UFC to translate over. Doesn't matter if this guy Zach um, had a 4 pound weight advantage, 3, 4 pounds, however many. Doesn't matter if he has the reach or height advantage, even if the reach is only slightly. It doesn't matter any of that because he's only got 7 pro fights. Meanwhile, Zaleski has had many fights within the UFC organization against pretty good opposition. He even KO'd Sean Strickland back in the day. Um, yeah, and even some pretty good ranked and unranked opposition that we see today. So this guy is a force to be reckoned with, even at the age of 37, almost 38. And aside from the fact that I did think he was going to lose to the pace and possibly EPO of Nicholas Dalby, he is a really good UFC fighter, I must say. And I do think that he was going to win if the cardio could have been stopped against Nicholas Dalby. But hey, he got a good win here, so yeah, he kind of just hit Zach with a right hand, or it might have been a left. And he just kind of went down to the side of the fence, and he didn't really make a good enough effort to improve his position. Not that it would have been easy for him to improve his position from there, but he didn't really have a good enough effort either. So, yeah. Moving on. This one I kind of feel, I think I said in the prediction video, this was for a different fight, but I did say that I think whoever I pick in this one, I'm gonna feel stupid if I get it wrong, and I do feel a little stupid knowing that Carolina just wasn't throwing enough, because everybody's saying, oh, she's washed, oh, she's just not, she's just old and she's too she just doesn't have the power or whatever. But Carolina, that's not the issue. She just wasn't throwing. I went back and watched some of it, and in the first round, there was a lot of time where she just wasn't throwing. I know that it wasn't particularly, um, she wasn't maybe gonna set up the strikes, right? Maybe she was waiting for the opportunity, or maybe she was waiting for the opening. I get that. However, I feel like there were openings. I feel like there were a ton of openings. You look back at her last win against Diana Belbita, she is actually outstriking her to like a 30-27. One judge even gave it a 30-26. Now, granted, she used a little bit of grappling there, and she couldn't really get her grappling off here, but I feel like if she just threw some more in round one, she literally could have won this fight. And that's what was so frustrating about this one. And I am also kind of I'm also kind of uh, not happy with the outcome, especially. I'm not happy, especially because I think that she could have salvaged her UFC career here. She's saying that she's not going to retire, but against who is she going to fight now? She's just a stepping stone for prospects now, and I can't expect it to get much easier. So I just kind of feel like I kind of feel bad because it's nowhere else to go in your UFC career. You're clearly you made the rankings again in your last fight or last couple fights ago when you were on that 4 fight winning streak, or it might have been five. Either way, you were on that winning streak, and now after two losses, now there's nowhere up to go. Now since you've hit in that second peak, I don't think that if you're not going to be willing to just throw when you need to win the fight, when you clearly are losing and you're clearly in the power disadvantage and the athleticism and age disadvantage, I think you're just going to need to know if you have it and you don't have it anymore. So it's kind of unfortunate and it's saddening because she actually looked promising and she looked like she could make a decent run again. But even in her last fight, I thought that similar opponent kind of, although she's more of a long and rangier type of striker, I feel like. Her last opponent, she kind of did the same thing. She just kind of did the same thing as Denise Gomes. She just was being busier, and that's kind of what wins you women's MMA fights now. So, yeah, it's kind of unfortunate, I must say. I wish her the best, and I hope that she retires because I don't want a another, what was it, 4 or 5 loss streak. She had like a 4 or 5 loss streak, Karolina Kowalkiewicz, before she could get to a 4 or 5 fight win streak. So I don't want to see that again. it's just kind of like, and even if it's not like too saddening at that point, even if it's just like Tony Ferguson, where it's like, oh, okay, we just expect him to lose at this point. It's not that sad anymore. Even still, it's like that's just gonna take a spot on a UFC card. So I don't know. It would be quite boring, to be honest. And then we have Mansour Abdul Malik versus the Slavic Sneeko. I'm surprised that I didn't think of that before, but he literally looks like the Slavic version of Sneeko. If you know, you know. He literally looks, I mean, come on. Come on. He literally looks like Sneeko. Moving on. We have, yep, first round KO. Now I expected a round 2 TKO, and the reason for that was I thought that he'd be able to keep his range a little better. I understand that he obviously doesn't have the reach advantage, but I thought that maybe he would try a few like jabs or teep kicks, try and implement a little bit of a Strickland approach. Ironically, though, Abdul Malik had he had him as his training partner, Sean Strickland, and he was there, and he was saying Sean Strickland will be the next UFC champion for middleweight. That was pretty cool. Nice to see. And yeah, he justified his favorite status, being such a favorite. I think you give him maybe two more fights outside the rankings, two more, maybe one more that is a decent layup, kind of like a Peyton Talbot approach. And then you give him someone just outside the rankings, a little bit better than Peyton Talbot's current next signing, a little bit better than a Rony Barcelos. At this point, he's not just outside the rankings, he's more like a top 30. So I would say um, maybe a Jun Park or something, if he's still outside the top 15 by the time uh, Malik gets another fight. I would say that makes sense. I mean, Jin Park, he isn't necessarily a young up and coming prospect at this point. I would like to see him get the rankings, but he's not quite a young guy, so they're probably going to use Abdul Malik to stepping stone over Jin Park. And yeah, basically the story of this fight was um, it was basically just a complete beatdown, if I'm being honest. He was just kind of rushing in for the finish for the most part. And it wasn't like it was uneducated either. When people thought that he was gonna gas or something, no, he was keeping it up and he was doing very good pacing himself. I think he's a great prospect to look out for. And yeah, tough luck for Todorovic or Todorovic. Tudorovic. Man, how do I freaking mess up on that name so bad? Moving on, we have Julian Robertson, Luana Pinheiro. I kind of expected Julian Robertson to get the takedown that she got in the third, in the first, but she got it done. It was kind of competitive. I was kind of surprised at just how crazy some of the scorecards were. Specifically, one of them giving a 10-8 out. I thought that was a bit crazy. I thought this fight was pretty close. I do think that Julian Robertson got this one. However, I think that the um, third round definitely went to Julian Robertson, and the second round pretty close, but pretty clear still to Luana. And the first went to Julian Robertson. So yeah, with Julian Robertson, I actually think her striking isn't great. No shocker there, but I think that it's actually kind of underrated because people are saying that it's like the worst striking they've ever seen. I don't quite agree with that. I think that, yes, it's not great, duh, but I actually think that she's got a okay right hand, okay little boxing fundamentals, I think. I hope that she learns from this and that she can maybe try and improve on her striking going into her next fight because this, if this is a sign for her going into the rankings further up, then it's not going to look good for her because, as we know, Luana's kind of trash, and Julian isn't great either, but she's young, so maybe who knows, she'll look better in her next fight, but I don't know. Opposition's only gonna get harder from here. And moving on, we have Gaston Bolaños versus Contavious Romeos. Cortavios Romeos. Now, this one I kind of expected, but I just couldn't go with the guy who wasn't a young up-and-comer, wasn't the Contender Series hyped up guy, who had a 7-5 Bellator win. I couldn't really pick that in good conscience, but Gaston Bolaños had great kicks, very good kicks, and they were landing to the body a lot, and he was even kind of winning in the grappling. He was winning the first round until I couldn't tell if he got dropped or not. Judging off of how the scorecards went, they thought that he didn't get dropped. I couldn't quite see it back, but I'll have to rewatch it. And yeah, I mean, pretty good win from him. I think what we discovered is Cortavios Romeos is quite overrated. Going into this. Now he did almost have a submission in the first round, I believe. Maybe it was the second, but yeah, he also kind of gassed trying to go for a takedown in the second round, and then he just kind of wasn't the same after that. So that kind of tells you the story of the fight. He was just getting pieced up. Good combos, good kicks. And yeah, I mean, Gaston Bolaños is now a decent guy to look out for. His record doesn't tell you the full story of his fighting career and capabilities, and he is 32, so he needs to try and work his way up the division fast, but pretty decent win, I must say. Now, this was the funniest fight of the card. We have the Dracus Duplessis 2.0. Even everyone else is calling him that. Lucas Tracy is saying that he's the look-alike. He is the replica. And we have MMA Joey saying that he is the worst striking soy version of Dracus Duplessis. And Ryan the Ritter, I mean, yeah, he doesn't have that sort of throwing caution to the wind kickboxing style, but I think he arguably has slightly better grappling, I think. I think his jiu-jitsu's better. I mean, he submitted Gerald Meerschaert when Gerald Meerschaert's supposed to have the good gas tank, which is round 3. So that tells you what you need to know here. That this is impressive, quite frankly. And Rain de Ritter, he showed that he could go 3 rounds practically. He showed that he can pull out a win when it's 50-50 kind of. The odds were slightly leaning his way still in the third round because they did expect the older guy to maybe wither a little more, and that's what happened. He even dropped Gerald Meerschaert in the first round at the end of it. He was looking sloppy. He was covering up. I'm not sure what he was going for. He was kind of like turning to the side, almost as if he was like trying to go for an oblique kick or some kind of a kick, but he would never actually kick. He just was like awkwardly expecting something to come, I guess, his way, and it never did. He was turning to the side with his guard up, and I don't really know what that was all about. But yeah, he needs to polish his striking if he's going to go any further, I think. I think he can maybe slightly outstrike a maybe a Roman Dolidze or a Jack Hermanson just off of attributes. Just off of pure attributes, being the tall guy, being a huge guy for the weight class, if we're being honest. 6'4", he made light heavyweight before. But, I mean, I don't know. Looking how he looked in this one, I think maybe even Roman Dolidze and Jack Hermanson can win. So I think he needs to polish his striking quite a bit if he's going to make any advances in the weight class. But I like his style, I like his fighting style, I like his personality. He's a good prospect to look out for. But he's old, 34. He's got to make his moves now. So he has to fight one of those guys or someone else in the top 15. Maybe Michel Pereira. And he has to immediately shoot in that fight because that would be terrifying on the first minute of the fight. Um, Though if he could just survive a minute, he'll probably just gas him out. So I don't know. I think there's options, but yeah, he's a guy to look out for. Just gotta enter the top 15 as soon as possible. And last but not least, Carlos Prates. Not a fluke, not a dive. I think he looked impressive in the grappling. I saw some people saying that he Magny took a dive or he looked kind of suspicious on the single leg or the takedown or anything to discredit Carlos Prates. That's what it looked like to me because honestly, I've seen other people against Neil Magny, some people that actually are looking like decent prospects, some people that are actually looking decent, and they couldn't quite do with that. They couldn't take him out in the first round. People will some people will glaze Ian Gary for his performance against Neil Magny, but in the same breath, they'll say, "Oh, this first round KO was oh what a first round KO! Look at the complete domination from Ian Gary," and it's like, okay, but he couldn't get him out with the soy kicks. Ian Gary couldn't get him out with the soy kicks. People are saying that was a brutalization. Like, it was kicks. That's all it was. It was just kicks. Like, I don't get it. Why are they trying to discredit Carlos Prates all of a sudden? It's so weird. And also, Lucas Tracy was saying that Carlos had a similar style to Anderson Silva. Honestly, to me, it was a little bit more of a Conor McGregor style. Sure, he didn't use the wheel kicks or whatever else kind of kicks that Conor McGregor had, but his left hand was quite like Conor's, I must say. And yeah, I don't get why they're discrediting Carlos Prates. He comes from a more striking heavy background, and he doesn't have the gyms that Ian Gary has been to with the grappling department. Now, granted, he could have looked a little better in the grappling and against the fence, but he took down Neil Magny. He reversed it. So honestly, I think he looks quite good in the grappling. And he does have Caio Baralhio, and he does have some other grappling guys in his gym. Don't get me wrong, the fighting nerds are great. I'm just saying, um, Ian Gary's current gym is with Charles Dubronx, if I'm not mistaken. So that's a level up. That's slightly better than what you have at the Fighting Nerds right now, I must say. But the Fighting Nerds are an up and coming gym to look out for, honestly. And yeah, crazy good performance. Neil Magny either retire or I don't know, fight Mike Malott again. Why not? Maybe he'll beat you this time. And yeah, I mean, he was calling out Jeff Neal or um, what is it, Jack Della Maddalena. I think he beats Jack Della Maddalena, but he doesn't deserve that. I think Jeff Neal makes sense. It's a good boxing style for him to work his game on. I think that it would maybe be around 3 TKO, honestly, because I think that Jeff Neal does have the chin, and he does have the good enough boxing technique to last till the third round. And, the competition's only going to get harder for Prates from here, so I don't expect it to get easier by any means. And Yeah, 7 and 11 on picks. 7-11. Haha. Okay, that was cringe. Cringe alert. Cringe. Cringe. 7 and 11. Pretty okay, I'd say. Could have been better, but I mean, I'll take it. I'll take 7 out of 11 picks here. Correct. And I could have sworn I picked Ritter by a third round submission, but I guess not. And yeah, now it's time for the big one. John Jones versus Stipo, as Lucas Tracy would say. No, but John Jones versus Stipe Miocic. This will be a crazy one. I saw the poster was changed by a fan, and the UFC actually posted it, or maybe it was a staff, someone in their staff edited it, or Photoshop, whatever. And yeah, it was glorious, glorious to see the official UFC page trash this stupid main event. Um, I'm gonna call it one of the best cards we've ever seen, or the best card we've ever seen, to troll a little bit, but yeah, we know that this is trash. Everybody's saying it, and it's deserved. Um, we all know it. So, the big one, it's definitely the big one, and you'll be surprised, viewers of my channel who might see this, that I'm actually going with a few underdogs on this card. A few underdogs that most people aren't picking, so stay tuned for that. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.